Welcome to Nichecast, Niche Gamers' very own podcast. Today we have Fingal Belmont.
How you doing, everybody?
We have Brandon Little.
Hey, everyone.
And you have me. So, guys, what have you been playing this week?
Me? Other than replaying some old Castlevania games and the Eternal Castle, I've also... I'm going back to give a second look at Breath of the Wild.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why, but for some reason I just kind of got the itch to give it a reevaluation to see if my initial impressions were correct on the first time I played it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the way everyone is right now, sort of wide open spaces, is probably something that's going to be very appealing to people. But what do you think of it? What do you think of it on your new playthrough?
I think I was right the first time. I think that it's a lot of it is a waste that they created this really vast and open space, and that there's nothing interesting in it.
Yeah, I remember Yoko Taro sort of said something where it's like you want to make the open world just big enough for players, but not overly big, because if you make it too big, all the sort of side quests and things like that become chores.
There's not even really chores in the game. It's just kind of because you start off fully equipped with everything, and every task you come across you can kind of take care of right from the start. So nothing is really ever locked out, which I think is okay. I'm all right with that. But
so
the reward is so hardly worth it.
Oh, a challenger has appeared halfway through our recording. We have oh god, what's that username again? We have Alan Watts suddenly with us. Hello, Alan.
Hey, how you guys doing? I'm sorry I came in late.
That's okay. That certainly makes things interesting. Do you want to restart the recording or keep it as is?
Let's keep going.
All right. We was just Fingal was just saying there was absolutely nothing wrong with trying to collect 999 Korok seeds.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I don't think they intend you to collect them all. I think they just put it enough so that you don't have to collect them all. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I certainly do believe that was the intention.
I think, the idea was to create a surplus so that there's always something to find, even if it's not really worth the effort.
But there's always going to be those out there who feel like the I think we've mentioned it in the podcast before, the clean the bone mentality, the idea they've got to experience every single thing in the game and complete everything, which is sometimes to its detriment, which sounds strange, but...
When I was a younger man, I used to be like that. But now that I'm really old and tired, I'm more interested in the stuff that's good, you know?
Oh, God, it's too short. If you're not enjoying yourself, you got to just chuck it, ain't you?
Yeah.
So, Alan, what have you been playing?
I've mostly been benchmarking, but when I have been playing things, I've been playing a bit of Tarkov before the server wipe, which is going to happen soon, TM.
So that's sort of like the not Rust, but it's sort of similar where it's the case you get your progress reset every month or every couple of months.
Basically, around the time whenever they do a major game update, it's something like twice a year they have a server wipe. Every 4 to 8 months they have one, and it resets all your game progress because it's interesting because what they said is one of the reasons why is they're trying to fine tune the gameplay, and when they add new weapons or new maps, they sort of want to make it that they can also see how new players would progress through this stuff, lower level players, lower eco players. So, they could add a mid-tier gun, but if you add it at the end of the wipe, like now, there's everybody's got M4s with crazy attachments to them because we've all got tons of research.
So, I mean, what is Tarkov? Is that like one of those survival games like Rust?
So it's weird. It's almost like a survival a massively multiplayer online shooter. Basically, you hop into a game server. I'm trying to explain it properly, but I'm gonna really flub my way through it. But basically, you have a loadout of items, and whatever you bring into a raid, which is anywhere from 4 to 20 players depending on the map, you risk losing.
This is the first person.
Yes, and it's a first-person shooter, so it's a lot like MMOs in the sense of the gear and having the right loadout. But if you're really bad, you can have a really high tier loadout and lose. And if you're really good, you can take like a Mosin, a low tier gun with really good ammo, and kill really high spec players with one good shot. So skill still makes a part of it, but the gear also makes it easier to, win gunfights.
I see.
That's what I find fascinating about it and really interesting is you can kind of, you can go and fight the boss under leveled, so to speak. Or you can go and do PvE or PvP really under leveled against good players, and you can come out and there's a really high reward for a really high risk.
Sort of tying back into Breath of the Wild.
What else can I say about? I mean, it does have its moments. It's not all bad.
I'm a horrible person. I haven't played it yet, so I can't really comment.
I always felt like the whole open world thing was like a half-baked attempt to recreate the first game, where they just throw you in, they don't tell you anything. You gotta walk around, find the dungeons.
I mean, the thing is, with Breath of the Wild, it doesn't really have dungeons. It has what you can best describe as test chambers. And they just feel so disconnected from the world.
Do you think that sequel's going to sort of go in the same direction or somewhere different? I mean, I know what we've got so far is like an animatic so far, but...
See, what I thought they were going to do is what the sequel is doing that I thought they were going to do with DLC. I thought the DLC was going to be... They were going to recycle, but like add stuff into it. Like add actual dungeons or like recreate certain events from older Zelda games maybe. And it would be like a semi-sequel, but also DLC at the same. I mean, that's what I thought they were going to do. At least, I thought that would be a good idea. Maybe not, but who knows? As for what the sequel is, I just hope it's different.
Every time. I mean, it's better to be different than sort of going through the same rut every time. I mean, all we sort of know so far is possibly Ganon.
Ganon's back, like always.
And maybe something's... like, it looks like something's floating out of the ground, so I'm wondering if we're going to get, like, a floating continent or something with, like, a smaller overworld and a more structured sort of thing, like you were sort of saying.
What I'm expecting is they're going to do, like their variation of the Dark World,
Ooh.
Or it's like going to be some kind of like underworld that you go to, like the underbelly of the top side that you experienced in the first game. That's my expectation.
Shit, that kind of works. Death of the Wild instead of Breath of the Wild.
There's a lot you can do in there.
Interesting. Brandon.
Yo.
What you been playing this week, man?
I've been playing the Rune Factory 4 remake on the Switch. I put it down for a few weeks and picked it back up. I beat it on the 3DS, so this is just my second playthrough.
Oh, yeah. Are you enjoying it so far?
It's pretty good. I'm playing on the Hell difficulty, so I can actually like enjoy it, because when I played it on the 3DS, you can just kind of power through everything if you're just good at beat-em-up type games.
Certainly. Is it just because you get old you sort of think to yourself, I need to use hard mode?
Yeah, sometimes. But I mean, for people who have played, or in fact, for people who haven't, rather, it's like a Harvest Moon with RPG elements, and there's a crafting system and all that, and if it's too easy, you don't get to do anything. You can just take your low-level gear, you can beat up all the bad guys, beat the game, and there's all these in-depth systems that you don't even need to touch.
I totally get what you mean. I mean, there's been 2 or 3 games I've been playing recently which were too easy, and I just sort of dropped them. But the 2 I've been playing recently that I've been really, really enjoying, the Journey's End update for Terraria has just come out, and
yeah, I heard about that.
Terraria has done what I know this is sort of so stupid to say, Terraria has done what Minecraft should have done. Even though Minecraft's obviously the much more popular and financially successful game. There's actual sort of difficulty. It's got a beautiful difficulty progression with the combat, because when you start out, you're just sort of swinging your basic sword you craft, but as you go up the levels, you really need to be able to maneuver around, because the bosses just get very, very tough very, very quickly, and it's a really enjoyable sort of time that you actually get more out of the creativity because you've earned it more than you would have done in Minecraft. If that makes sense. Oh God, we've just lost Fingal. Actually, hold on.
I think he's having a connection issue.
Yes, he is. Fingal, you with us, buddy?
Sorry, I had to reconnect.
That's okay, as long as you're with us.
I was getting some rocky reception.
That's all right. The other game I've been playing recently is the demo for Monster Train, which is sort of like a roguelike deck builder tower defense game.
I'll look into that because I am a big fan of tower defense.
It's really interesting. The idea is that hell has frozen over because angels have invaded, and you are protecting the last spark of heat in hell. And you're on this big train taking it back to the centre of hell to try and sort of reform the underworld, as it were. And your little train carriage has got 4 layers on it with enemies coming in at the bottom, and every turn, if the enemy has not been killed on that floor, they go up to the next one. And you build your deck based on the factions you've picked from the demons, the cards you acquire. You've got different paths on the rails you can choose to affect what events you encounter and what cards you can earn. And I just sort of blitzed through it till about 5 a.m. last night, and it's surprisingly in-depth. Like, the first 2 factions, the 2 factions they give you in the demo, one's called the Horned, which is like the stereotypical image of demons, sort of red skin, big pointy ears, and that's just all about high damage output and keep summoning as many creatures as you can. While the other faction, which I think is called the Growth or something like that, which is sort of like plant-like creatures, they're all about defense and effects that bounce off of being attacked. So they work well together, but there's advantages and disadvantages to picking them as your main one.
I see. That makes it interesting. You said it's like deck building, so yeah, you need a little versatility.
And there's the full game's got 5 other factions, loads more cards, yada yada yada. But the demo looks like you can go all the way to the end, and you can still level up your faction as you keep doing runs, which I think's actually a really good way to do a demo. Let people actually carry it over to the full thing.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of that these days.
Hopefully we go back to the ways of the old-fashioned days where we actually get demos more.
Yeah, I wonder why that practice kind of has faded.
It was always chalked up.
Because,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say probably because of stuff like, you remember when, I think it was Disgaea for PC, or maybe it was Disgaea 5?
Oh, yeah.
They released the demo. They released the demo, and then somebody figured out that if you just tweaked something a little bit, you could unlock the full game.
Things like that used to happen with demos on disc too.
So stuff like that. People are more tech savvy than they used to be. They can just take a demo, reverse engineer whatever they got to do to get through it, and it's a risk.
The other thing is, if you're playing a game on a disc, it's very, very hard to, add the rest of the content or unlock something that's there. When you're giving somebody the files, it's very easy to add the missing pieces.
What would happen with a disc-based demo? What would the common way how some people would unlock the rest would be through a Game Shark.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it was done usually.
Which is insane to think that you'd sort of. It feels the wrong way around. You make a demo, you just carve out the part of the game you want and you serve it up on a plate. No, you've got to sort of bring the whole game into the demo to make sure it all works. Because if you pull one thread out, it all falls to pieces.
Sometimes it's totally separate build too.
Yeah,
it depends too on a lot of other factors. If you have multis on a disc, you're going to cut stuff out to make it all fit on a CD or a DVD. But I mean, it also depends. I mean, I'm thinking of like the the old PS1 demo discs that used to come in the magazines.
God, those were great, weren't they?
That was a real easy way to get Flying KO Squadron 2 was from like a Sega Saturn demo disc, I think. It was the UK, and it was really easy to exploit, where you could just get the entire game on there. Someone made a mistake.
Jeez. Crazy. So, jumping into this week's news. As part of the sort of pseudo E3, but not E3 presentations, we have seen about 18 minutes of gameplay for Ghost of Tsushima. Or I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Fellas, what do you think of it?
Well, let me say first, as the resident weeb, Tsushima is the right pronunciation.
Ah, thank you.
And yeah, and I don't know. It looks like an alright game. It doesn't look particularly inspired, in my opinion. Have you ever played like the old? Well, not old, like the Sega game Alpha Protocol, and just typical cliche. You're an intelligence CIA operative. You shoot people. It looks like that kind of game.
I'm familiar with it, but it looked like Batman to me. That was the biggest thing I got out of it.
Yeah, that Arkham style combat was in there. I don't really have any feelings towards it, honestly. Like, this was announced ages ago. And like in the time of 5-6 years maybe, this is what we get. I'm not feeling. I ain't hard, fellas. Sorry.
Considering they want more killer apps for the PS5, I'm amazed they didn't make it a PS5 game, especially with the focus on, oh, look how the wind blows all these sort of debris.
I can see why they didn't, because they know that the PS5 is going to not have that big of an install base at first, and it's tempting to make that exclusive and to make it a launch title. It's very tempting for them to do that, but this thing has probably been in development for so long and has eaten like millions of dollars. They got to put it on the platform with the bigger install base.
Get it out the door ASAP.
Well,
yeah.
I also want to say that going forward, because the underlying hardware is similar enough, you're going to see a lot of current and next gen games, and they're not going to split.
Yeah, there's going to be like this weird no man's land in between. You kind of saw a little bit of it last generation too.
It's going to be even more excessive though, because it's way easier to do this than compared to the other ones. These are still AMD based systems that are basically computer hardware that both run on very similar architecture. So I mean, you're gonna see a lot of that.
I'm not feeling the female
see...
samurai commander. I'm not feeling that. That's not something that would ever happen.
Really?
No, that shit doesn't happen. Never happened.
You speak like, are you a sort of a history buff on that sort of era?
I'm speaking as a combination of like historical accuracy and from my experience watching tons of old-timey samurai movies.
Okay.
See, this is something that like clues me in that Westerners made it.
I think,
or maybe the Japanese are trying to get an Eastern audience on it. I don't know.
I don't see Japanese players taking to Ghost of Tsushima.
Well,
Sashimi?
I mean, the whole thing...
Wow. Destroyed. Gamers destroyed.
The whole thing about female commanders, female samurai, is I think there is some historical base on that. I read a biography about the feudal lord Takeda Shingen, and I remember like he armored up one of his concubines and had her lead a detachment of soldiers for some small thing.
I'm sure there was probably one outlier, maybe two, at some point in history, but generally speaking, it never was something you would ever see.
I mean,
yeah,
how many...
Go on.
How many times have you seen, female army generals or commanders in your lifetime? I mean,
I think that there was maybe like in the Marines. I think there was only historically maybe 2.
I mean, if you look throughout Western history, which we're probably more familiar with, I know at least I am, it doesn't really happen. I mean, it could.
I'm sure it can happen, but I mean, it just doesn't. And seeing it like in something that's supposed to be historically accurate or inspired from old samurai films, it's not something you really ever see, and it just stands out to me as not culturally accurate.
Hmm.
I mean, it could be just something to try to make the Western audience happy. I don't know. Could be just the writers trying to stick their
proverbial
fantasy
woke dick in it. Maybe, who knows?
I think that's.
I didn't say that, you did.
That's, I think, one of the oddest things right now, where because every time you see certain characters, your first instinct is, oh, they're doing that for political reasons, even if that person actually put it in because they want that character in the story.
Maybe. I mean,
I've been burned from people legitimately saying that they're doing it to try to,
yeah. I was
woke
just gonna
people
say the
over and
exact
over.
same thing.
And I've seen it so many times that it's really hard to not. I want to be fair, but also at some point you feel kind of stupid. You know what I mean?
Shame on. First time is shame on you or shame on me, or you know the phrase.
Hold on, let me.
You don't.
Let me do it. Let me do it.
I'm a little hopped up on caffeine right now.
First time, you trick me, shame on you. Second time you fool me, ain't gonna fool me
Fool
again.
me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah, but
Okay.
George Bush said a better version.
You fool me, you ain't gonna get fooled again. Oh, God.
He was horrible, but man, he said some hilarious stuff.
Well, you can have more. You can have more of that if you vote for Joe Biden. Oh, God.
Did you guys talk about the Unreal Engine thing? And
No, we haven't jumped onto that yet. For those unfamiliar, Unreal Engine 5 was shown off recently. Looks very, very pretty. Lots of emphasis on the fact that you can have as many triangles as you like. And there was also the fact it was running on the PlayStation 5. Since that presentation, Tim Sweeney, most likely totally unprompted of course, has said that the storage architecture on the PlayStation 5 is far ahead of anything on PC.
so I want to tackle that as the hardware guy.
Go ahead.
First, I got to throw some of my opinions in the article. Please read the article, guys. Thumbs up, like it, subscribe to PewDiePie or whatever. So basically, he could be right that the underlying secret sauce of what Sony did on the software side is better because it's geared for games compared to what you can currently get on Windows PCs for gamers today. I do find it really weird for them to say that it is going to absolutely decimate anything on the market, which is what a lot of people are saying. Like, theoretical performance on this is faster than anything else. So if you pulled out the PS4 drive and tested it 1-to-1 against say the Samsung drive that should be coming out any number of weeks from now, and say that it's going to beat that, no, that's absurd. If you want to tell me that Sony has looked at this and tried their best working with their partners to try to make this work as optimized as possible for gaming, then maybe you're right. And they'll give their developers all of the toolboxes necessary to create the best experiences tailor-made for that drive, then yes. Because honestly, right now, you can have a really fast NVMe drive, NVMe M.2 drive, and games won't really use it. Like, aside from a few, games really won't use it compared to a regular SSD, which it should be almost 10 times faster.
I just had a scary thought.
Go ahead.
All right. Let's say Epic decides to get into the console race, and then they kind of keep this engine all to themselves. and then they can have like anybody who wants to use this engine is free to use it so long as it gets released on their platform.
Huh.
I mean, they could do that, but Epic is not a hardware company, and I don't think they ever
I
wanted.
mean, they aren't until they are. I'm just saying.
It's really,
Theoretical.
really hard to get in hardware, and hardware doesn't make a lot of money. It'd be really weird though to see Epic do that because they have a lot of, they make a lot of money as it is.
Yeah.
Selling to everybody else just their software.
They recently introduced the multiplayer system, if I recall correctly. With the last with the presentation, they sort of said, "Hey, if you want to do multiplayer in your game, here's the technology for it. You know, you can either use a Epic Games account or you can make your own account system."
Actually, wait. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Like, let's say if it wasn't even necessarily like hardware. What if it was something cloud-based like Stadia?
Ooh.
They could do that.
I think
I
after
could see that happening, but I don't think there's enough money in that. I think
Exclusivity and to totally monopolize on the most versatile and efficient engine there is. I don't know.
but
I mean, here's the other problem though. Developers are not going to want to just stick it on Epic Cloud. Like, I think that's really,
Maybe bigger
really
developers, probably not. But indie developers?
I mean, I guess. I don't know.
I think
I don't see that as a likely move.
I don't
because
think it's likely, but it is a scary thought to consider.
I suppose so. I, mean,
I think there's
a lot of
two big detractors from that. The first is Google Stadia's reputation, where
Yeah,
that
well,
basically fell flat.
Yeah.
Fell flat on
And
its
if-
face out the gate.
If Google has massive issues doing it, I don't think Epic has better engineers and servers than Google.
Fuck no! I mean,
Google runs and owns everything.
the other day they gave away Grand Theft Auto 4 or 5 for free, and their website crashed again.
Well, I guess the technology just isn't there yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was something that would develop in the coming years.
I would hope not. I will say this though, the main issue that I have with the whole presentation is not necessarily the presentation itself, but the way that everybody took it. Specifically the Jeff Keighley tweet and everything that everyone said under that.
What was
All
it?
of the articles. This is gameplay. This is PS5.
Oh yeah, well this is part of the course for every.
Well, this happens every generation. Yeah, no,
it's every time.
always.
You'd think by now they would have learned and grown up, but they haven't. So what do you do?
And I'm sorry if any of the people listening are really hardcore Sony fanboys, but the fanboys are not fair in this sort of stuff. They have a very strong personal bias to eat up whatever Sony said or whatever pro thing.
Remember what I said last time? Hype kills. It's never helped anybody.
Yeah, no, I actually wanted to bring that up when I was thinking about this earlier this week. So, I mean, the engine is fantastic. Looking at it, the technology is really there. I just think that you guys need to keep something in mind, that these sort of demos are tech demos. They're not built to try to be a game. They're not built to try to have a interesting gameplay elements and story. These things are all just theoretical, and they're put as high quality as possible to make their engine.
It's a movie.
Good. I wouldn't even say. I'd say it's more than that. I think this is a lot closer to actual gameplay, and the fact that it's running a piece of hardware. That it's not like the old real-time demos where they'd say, "Yeah, so this is on 3 top-of-the-line graphics cards at at 30 FPS and all this other stuff." This is running on PS4 at 30 FPS. Like, that's really.
This is going to
really
sound a little
PS5.
strange, actually. I just have like a weird thought once again. All right. I'm wondering, maybe the real limitation that we have now isn't so much graphics, but it's our input methods.
What do you mean by that?
Like we're still using controllers, and it's the same kind of face button setup with the dual analog sticks. Like, I was. You'd think that VR would have taken a bigger presence at this
VR
point.
has a lot of problems. There's a
Yeah.
lot of,
Yeah, it's pretty inaccurate, like with hand finger movements, all that. Controllers.
Like I said, like
handle
we're still
better.
having the same limitations that we've been having.
So are you saying that on like gameplay and game design?
I wouldn't say game design necessarily, just like input method. You know, we're still using the same things.
But I can limit how? Like limit in your experience gaming?
Let me explain. All right. So let's say, for the sake of the argument, that tech demo they showed was a game.
Mm-hmm.
How different? Like how much? Like other than the visuals, how different is it from anything that we've already had?
It looked like a glorified Uncharted game.
I was gonna say I thought that this was a Tomb Raider game.
Mm.
You start to see what I'm saying? Like how? Like even when you were to play it, like how? Like if you were to like downgrade its visuals enough where it could look like a PS2 game, like would it really play that much different?
Gameplay wise, what is the next innovation?
Exactly.
Well, yeah, no, there's a lot of questions as to how you do that exactly. But I mean, I'm looking at it more as I'm the kind of person seeing the as the ladies climbing up the rock walls, the particle effects from the rocks breaking and turning into gravel. Like that blew my mind.
Is that impressive?
To me, no, it's incredibly impressive because it's incredibly immersive. It's sort of like I like watching movies and commenting on the cinematography and the way that stuff is shot. So I mean, I'm a visual person in that way.
Okay. But these
I
are like
think the
artistic flourishes, right?
And there's also that little bit extra of immersing you into the game. Like, I don't know if you've ever done this, but you've ever installed mods in Skyrim where then you stare at the water and you're like, wow, it changed the water somehow. This looks
for like maybe, for like maybe all of 10
5 minutes,
maybe, but like 10 seconds, and then I'm like, all right, I'm over it. Like, yeah, I get diminished returns.
I suppose, but I mean, if it really comes down to gameplay stuff, that comes to game design, and I mean,
it reminds
the input method. That's a whole other thing.
Game design is still limited by what you can input with, though. You know,
because of AI and sort of ignoring waggle, ignoring like the wee sort of nunchuck waggling.
It was different.
But I mean, a keyboard at the end of the day still gives you more control than a lot of any other input methodologies because you've got like 20 fucking keys to use.
Boy, more than that.
But you're still like just pressing. I mean, it's the same kind of method that I do when I write a review. It's not terribly.
Well, I mean, then you're talking about the Elon Musk stuff of jacking into the internet, like having it connect directly to your brain.
No, I don't. I wouldn't want that personally. I just think that there's something else that can be done. I'm just kind of surprised how the PS5 controller is still basically the same thing.
I think a lot of people are comfortable with it, and I think it works for the most part. I think when you start getting to stuff that's way more theoretical, that's a risk. Yeah, it's very safe, and it's cheap. That's another thing.
Yeah.
And the main reason that I think like all the tech demos and stuff focus on the graphics more than any kind of revolutionary gameplay is because that's what the console war's about. That's what everybody
it's also something you can see.
Here's another thing. Epic's job is to sell you their engine. Their engine mostly allows you to change things in terms of fidelity, lighting, the whole thing about using the film grade assets, the immersion with visual stuff. That's a lot of what the engine does. AI things.
The film grade assets is interesting to me because I'm wondering if we'll start seeing a whole bunch of like old movie 3D assets get repurposed in future games. That would be interesting.
It'd be really cool, honestly. It'd be really cool. But I was impressed by not the part that everyone else showed, like the last bit where she's sort of flying through the air and there's tons of blur and there's all this wide open area. Yeah, I was more impressed by the part that actually felt like the walking part of a Tomb Raider game, where she's walking through these caves, and you got to actually see the fidelity. The reason why I bring that up is it's easy to trick the mind's eye when you only see it for a frame and you're flying incredibly quickly. When you're sitting there and you see the same wall textures for about 30 seconds, they're not tricking you. And if they're tricking you, they're doing a great job of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
I think, though,
I also still feel like diminished returns after a while, and I also feel the opposite when I do see repeating textures, because it's like, with a repeating texture, after a while, I just kind of like my brain does this kind of shorthand thing where I just kind of like filter it out, and I don't even realize it anymore.
You suspend your disbelief.
Yes, because that's what movies are too. Movies and games, you suspend your disbelief, and you just kind of your imagination fills in the gaps. It's something that we all do.
And it's why older games still manage to hold up graphically.
Precisely, yes. I mean, Silent Hill 2 may not be impressive technically by today's standards, or even last-gen standards, but, I mean, you can't really do wrong with that one artistically.
I mean, using the fog as a draw distance hider was brilliant.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting how developers have found limitations and found ways around them.
Yeah, that to me is always more interesting than having unlimited tools, because you find strengths in limitations.
The other thing, though, that I wanted to cover specifically about this was a lot of people looked at this and said, this is what the PS5 is going to be like, and no, this more tells me this is what Unreal Engine 5 could look like. Not specifically about the PS5. I don't think anything they did there necessarily needed the storage that is in the PS5, because that's its main strength. Allegedly, it's twice as fast. I don't know where people got the sources on this. I'm probably one of the few people who are game journalists, quote unquote. I say that very, iffy about that, because I'm just a tech guy who could actually read the white papers on these things if they were out and tell you whether or not it's twice as fast. I review SSDs. I've reviewed SSDs, so this is not this is something that I'm probably way more equipped to deal with than a lot of the people who are talking about it and
you mean to
praising
say
it
you're
as
more
something
qualified
magical.
than, okay, sure.
Yes.
I wouldn't say I'm the one of the most educated people when it comes to this, because there are guys who do this that legitimately could work on the things. I'm not there, but I think I'm a lot more qualified than a lot of people who are sort of shouting from the rooftops that this is revolutionary, and I'm like, why? It's just really fast. Again, I've seen a lot of people take this as sort of other engines will do this, and it's like, well, no. I think graphically, Unreal made the Epic guys made some really good points that Unreal specifically does some things to lower the actual running poly count on the hardware, but gives you a much higher poly count in the visual, if that sort of makes sense. They do lossless file compression so that the texture doesn't look any different, but it's smaller in size, so it's less actual triangles for them to render. That is more of an Unreal thing than something that Sony or your EA games will be able to do. This is a Unreal Engine thing. And I think you would see games that probably don't look as nice running on the PS5 and the Xbox One X, but get close to it. I think that's definitely going to be a possibility in a year or two. I think you're totally going to see stuff like that. But I don't think that the argument that this is somehow different from the PS5, because the PS5 uses a slightly weaker graphics card, allegedly, rumored, whatever, than the Xbox One X. And the CPU is the same, and it uses roughly the same kind of memory. So their big advantage is the SSD. And I don't think anything there except for maybe the last section where she flies really quickly through really high poly assets. Maybe that, but can you really tell how good the game looks?
No, exactly, because it's all going at 100 miles an hour. Who cares? I mean, you could cheat that if you wanted. No one's going to know.
So, in Forza on PC, there is dynamic render options which lower the resolution and game settings and a bunch of other stuff to hit a certain frame rate on stuff you're not noticing. So, like, it does a thing where it will lower the resolution of the blurry stuff you're driving by that you don't see. The bush that's in the background, it renders at really low poly that you can't see, so that performance remains the same. The frame rate remains the same, and you don't get stutters. Just the quality lowers, and you honestly really have to look to tell. So, in situations like that, it's not really as noticeable. But again, if you're going to be sitting at a crafting bench for 20 minutes, you're going to notice all the textures on there. Or if you're going to climb up a rock, and it's going to take you 5 minutes to get through this one section, then yeah, you're going to notice the visual fidelity.
A lot of this really only applies if the game is aiming for photorealism, though.
And
I mean, you can use higher quality assets that are, cel shaded or something too. It's just you don't gain as much from them. They look nicer. Like I think you would agree with me that games that are made today with that same sort of art style look better than ones that were made, on the PS2.
I don't know. It depends.
With all things being the same, because the art style totally does matter. And if you have bad art or okay art and you compare it to really great art at a lower resolution, then yeah, the better art will look better. But if the art is roughly to the same quality, the polys are always nice. The triangles or they said they're actually not using polygons with this. They're using something else, and then it's turning it into polygons. Is it again on a technical level, the demo's really cool. I'm really hyped for how this is going to make games look. But the idea that this is the PS5 and the PS5 only, I don't know. Tim Sweeney made it seem that way, but Tim Sweeney is also a CEO of a company.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I'm not saying money changed hands, but there's a reason Tim was really eager to talk about the PS5 over the Xbox One.
I mean, again, if you tell me the developers really like the storage speed, that it removes loading zones and elevators you have to go through and all that sort of stuff that they kind of had to do. I suppose so. That could be really... Some developers could be more hyped for that than the higher poly counts that the other one can do or whatever.
Moving on to another game that was sort of shown off, well, actually announced this week. Probably graphically couldn't be any further on the other end of the scale. Paper Mario: The Origami King. This was sort of previously rumoured, that the rumour sort of persisted that there was going to be a big remake bundle of Super Mario 64, Galaxy, Sunshine, a couple of things like that. But they also said, hey, there's going to be a new Paper Mario that goes back to its roots, which was
Roots, huh?
Yeah, very loosely defined. All the rumour was false because while story-wise, seems like the sort of thing we'd get from Paper Mario. You've got a new villain. You've got the idea of this origami creature, which is brainwashing people by turning them into origami, which I think could be quite amusing and interesting. I mean, Bowser sort of walking around as this tiny post-it note, basically. But the actual gameplay isn't so much the original Paper Mario 64 or the Thousand Year Door. It's like that on a big circle. And
it kind of looks like a puzzle game.
Puzzle / RPG. Like, the idea is that you line up all the enemies on these rings. it gives you a power boost, and then you select one of your attack commands. Now, whether that's like sticker start and you've got to buy your attack commands, or there's something else there. I mean, this could easily be the stage system from Thousand Year Door, but on a 3D plane, or it could be something entirely new and weird.
Paper Mario games have kind of been all over the place. There was that one on the Wii that was kind of like a standard platformer.
Paper Mario, yeah.
And then there was the one on the 3DS, and then Color Splash. And I know a lot of people have issues with these games, and I tried to play a little bit of the 3DS one. I didn't get very far because I kind of lost interest pretty early on, actually. And I see why people were upset with those last two games. And if this new one is following in the same direction, then I can understand that people would be very worried. And the direction is more to do with the combat having almost no incentive. Because in the last two games, if you got into a fight, it uses up precious resources, and you don't get anything after a battle. So it's just kind of defeats the point of getting into fights at all or clearing out an area. It's just something that you didn't want to do. But you want to do that when you play a turn-based RPG, right?
Right.
It's just completely unincentivized. It's just totally backwards.
It was like the Sword and Shield Pokemon games I sort of reviewed. Reviewed Sword. You just got so much EXP from every action you took. There just wasn't a game in the end. Like, by the time you got to the 5th boss, you were already equal in level to the final boss. And like the expansion's coming out soon, they're going to have to limit what you bring to your little island, because otherwise you're going to have so many healing items, overpowered creatures, and all that sort of stuff. It's not going to be a game.
It's not terribly balanced.
No, not at all. But I mean, it's very early days.
To be fair, the item thing was always a problem in those games. I remember having tons and tons of items for the Elite Four when I was a kid, and I was like 6 or 7 or 8.
Because it's very much a case that if you're under-leveled, you just throw potions to keep yourself alive. If you're over-leveled, you don't need to do anything.
You know what I always thought was a problem with Pokemon games? I mean, who am I to say a problem with Pokemon, but I always thought that it was kind of a missed opportunity to have you that you never fight things that weren't Pokemon. You know how, like in the Pokemon cartoon show, sometimes the two bad guys would have like a giant robot and fight. You know, I always thought, you know what? Why? This shit in the games.
The closest they did to that was one of the I think Sun and Moon, which was the previous games, which, to make a very long story short, a Lovecraftian jellyfish possessed a person.
Interesting.
But then all that happened was the creatures they sent out got a buff on turn 1. That was it. Like, you didn't fight the creature directly or anything like that. And again, a big missed opportunity. And I think sort of combining that with the Paper Mario discussion, I think with the Pokemon games, there are now an equal amount of bad games as good games. And with the Paper Mario series, there are an equal number of shakier games compared to the standout games. So it's not
the first 2 or 3 that people love. It's almost equal now. Yeah.
And the recent entries where people are a bit more iffy, where it's a case where it's, well, okay, you're not doing any. It's great that you've gone back to some of the more classic enemies, but there are no new enemies. There are no, like the original games used to have every single Toad NPC was
that's right.
Original.
Every character was distinct and unique. Now every character is the same one. It's like the same exact little drawing. Like nothing. There's no variation, no little accessories to make them distinguished.
Yes.
A lot of people
same asset over
that. Yeah, same asset recycled everywhere.
Which it saves money, I get, but if you
does it really cost that much money to draw like a mustache on a Goomba?
I imagine it's more expensive than we realise, but yeah, even so, you want to at least make sure that the next game you make is visually as satisfying to people as the original one, as the previous one. Don't ever look like you're taking a step back. You can sort of do the same quality again, but you can't sort of look like you're sort of going back. I mean, that was the big problem with Sticker Style, where it was a case of they tried a new system, which was very weird. And then on top of that, there were lots of little decisions that people didn't like. Like the fact that, I think it was Sticker Style, Bowser didn't talk. And now the Paper Mario games made Bowser quite a funny character. And fans were rioting over the fact that the guy didn't have any dialogue. So I think we covered Paper Mario, so we'll move on to the next subject. Okay, 1, 3, 2, 1. Moving away from sort of very cute and cuddly sort of game with Paper Mario. Well, cute and cuddly apart from one way. Did you see, like in the trailer, where, for a brief moment, he's got like these really stretchy Freddy Krueger arms?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it's fine. Whatever makes the game more fun, it's fine.
I hope it pans out sort of like something actually enjoyable. You know, sort of the. I think the previous games had like this feature where you'd have like photorealistic objects act as like special attacks. And this time it looks like it's going to be you peel back layers of the environment and put a paper mache head on yourself, which
I kind of feel like the last couple of games have kind of have almost like a point and click adventure flow to it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, the puzzles haven't been overly complex. It has been a case of walk up to object, bring an object with you to solve that problem.
Yeah, you got to get the thing, find it, put the thing in the thing to open up the thing.
And whether the stretchy arms sort of solve that, or there again, say no innovation on top of that, we'll have to see. Speaking of it,
Nintendo's pretty good at keeping things interesting.
Speaking of innovation, gone wrong. Doom Eternal's multiplayer has introduced an anti-cheat software with 2 words that people hate: kernel-based and de novo. De novo.
Why now? Like, why now? I don't understand. It's been out for like what? How long has it been?
Oh,
2 months?
a couple of months, yeah, I think so. But again, why not launch?
I don't get it.
Something don't sit right, and not just because of the company involved. I mean, we could say it's like, oh, it's the coronavirus that's delayed sort of things. I mean, on De Novo's website, they said they basically ran like an early access program with developers, sort of saying, hey, do you like how this software works? But
Are there a lot of people cheating on Doom Eternal multiplayer?
I think some people would be surprised. Yeah, are people even playing the multiplayer? Like, I think 99% of the people that have been playing the game have been playing it for the single player. Maybe that's why they sort of brought in this anti-cheat software. You know, do it on a multiplayer that people aren't that fussed about to see how hard they riot.
Or maybe they did it to remind people that there is a multiplayer mode.
In the worst way possible, by dragging it out back and shooting it in the fucking head.
Yeah. It's like, hey guys, look. We have multiplayer mode, and then maybe the plan is to take it away after people hear about it.
I mean, De Novo must know the reputation they have, surely.
Nah, they don't care.
Well, I mean, maybe that's why they're putting it on Doom, because nobody's using Doom multiplayer. So they're just kind of putting their name out there. All the industry people are seeing it.
Yeah, it's a backroom deal.
Bethesda can sort of say, hey, no one's using our server. De Novo wants to sort of show off their new anti-cheat software. We'll let them pay us to put it on there. I mean, I'm not saying that's happened, but stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
As I say, the sort of mysteries of the back room we will never know. As we were sort of touching on earlier with the Epic and Sony being very, very close to each other. Speaking of Sony being close to people, earlier this week we had the Chinese PlayStation Store was taken down to improve its security. Immediately after gamers in China had worked out how to access foreign games that had not been licensed.
Yeah, improving security.
Nothing happened here. Don't worry about it. For those unfamiliar, the to sell a game in China, you need a license. Whether you are based in that country or you're trying to sell in that country, you need to get a license from the government in order to sell a product there. And so
almost always it's Tencent that comes in.
The biggest tech company out there, to point that people say they're basically synonymous with the Chinese government, although it's hard to imagine that you could get big in China and not, work with the Chinese government, with the whole social credit system. Like, if you don't play ball, you get the shit kicked out of you.
No, you don't get the shit kicked out of you. You just get corrected.
Yeah. You can't use trains, can't go to a hotel, I mean,
they bolt your front door shut and you're stuck in your house until you starve.
Oh god, those are. I don't know whether those videos are real, but the idea of it potential. They could do that if they wanted. That's the worrying part. But the going back to the actual TikTok thing itself, the only reason Sony knew about it was because there was a whistleblower. Somebody actually sort of snitched and sort of said, like, hey, I've been able to access foreign games not approved by the Chinese government. And
was it Jason Schreier?
Maybe. But suffice to say, he got a reception about as warm as Jason Schreier on Chinese social media after he did that. See, that's what surprises me. Like, you hear people complaining about it, and the impression we always get is that if anyone complains, they're gone. But clearly there are people out there sort of saying, no, we don't want this.
It's always this, like, father knows best attitude from these companies.
I mean, it's from the top down, But it's sort of the idea that, this is sort of like a couple of weeks late with the fact that how when this all kicked off with Blizzard originally, with the Hearthstone incident.
Yeah.
Really, you could get positive PR by sort of saying, the Chinese government asked us to do this, we refused because we love freedom, USA, and you'd get some good PR out of that. I mean, when we looked over Blizzard's financials, like the whole region of Asia, so not just China but other regions, countries there as well, was only 12% of their profit. Like, so many companies that sort of think that China is going to be the next big economic boom, or was going to be the next big economic boom, and even before the coronavirus, it's just not there.
I think as they've seen successes, like big successes happen, they think there's like this potential, and that's what they're chasing.
It's a gold rush, ignoring the fact that the government out there dictates who succeeds or who doesn't. It's crazy stuff, man, crazy stuff. Moving on to some happier news. Happy, maybe not happy for everyone. Evo, the big fighting game tournament, have sort of said, no, don't worry lads, we're going to do it online. But one of the games has been dropped from the roster. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has actually been dropped from the earlier announcement. There wasn't any sort of big fanfare or reason stated why, but fans have sort of theorised it was due to the game's netcode being insufficient, very laggy, sort of disconnects and so on and so forth.
I thought it was so they didn't have to provide showers on site.
Well, being online, that should be no issue. You could sort of stay at home
Yeah.
Being as online, you could stay at home and be as smelly as you like. But what's your guys' experience with like sort of like Smash Brothers and things like that as a competitive game?
The meme is true about the smell.
It's a good game. Smash Brothers is, almost always has been. I know some people are like Melee purists and they'll be like, oh, well, anything after the GameCube one is trash. But as far as Ultimate goes, the netcode very well could be the issue. The game is laggy, incredibly so, when playing online. And when you have like a 3D fighter, you want to have precise movements, and you're just going to get smashed.
I certainly see I think there is an imbalance because the new DLC fighters get OP for like a month. Like, people are still complaining about Byleth. I think the fact that a lot of her attacks are she's got huge range, huge knockback potential and so on and so forth. But because you obviously pay to get it, they're not going to make the character not fantastic.
Yeah, and they said the same thing about Corrin in the 3DS Wii U version. Corrin was super powerful when they came out.
The big one that's still going. I mean, I've not been entirely following like changelogs or anything like that. But the big one apparently that people loathe online is Zelda, because of the teleport has a big area of has big knockback, quite a large range.
Area. I thought you were talking about her butt.
Oh god, yeah. The when they updated the hitbox to sort of add, as people have eloquently put it, a dump truck.
Yeah. Zelda's pretty broken because she can zone you in all of her abilities, even her long range Din's Fire. Just the animations are so smooth and swift that there's almost no counterplay, in my opinion.
Wow. So she.
I've never played Smash Online yet.
So it's like Zelda does what Palutena would want to do.
Yeah, Palutena is like a shorter range Zelda, but with none of the advantages.
Wow. Do you think that I mean, everyone's sort of been saying it's been like the online, it's the connectivity's been the issue. Could other factors have been in there? Is the game not balanced enough for a competitive atmosphere? Are there any backroom deals that are sort of saying, this isn't fair?
I don't think it's balanced, honestly. I love the game, but that's a lot of characters in a single fighting game.
Well, I mean, even with balance, that's never stopped Smash before. You've got melee tournaments where it's Fox only, no items, final destination.
At that point,
really,
why
all
bother?
characters don't have to be balanced. And, I mean, you're not wrong. Is that
I don't follow
the
more competitive aspect of it, but I hear from other people who are into it. They tell me how certain characters get banned all the time, and I just can only think to myself how unfun it must be to constantly be told this, and like the amount of regulation that has to go into making sure that it's that it can meet the requirements for these kinds of competitive play. Maybe it's just too much work.
Yeah. Competitive Smash players are like speedrunners. If there's something that can be exploited, they will exploit it. Like, I don't know if you've ever been online and seen, I forget what they call it, an ice climber's desync tech.
Oh god, the wobble.
And it's disgusting. Yeah, wobbling, that's it.
For those unfamiliar, it's because ice climbers are essentially two characters where the second mimics the first. If you move right, you can get the character out of sync with the other one. So you can have one character grab the opponent and the other one pummel them, or have both characters pummeling the character from either side, and you stun lock them until they're a high enough % that you can just kill them outright.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can do that in Ultimate. I knew it was a thing at Brawl. No, not Brawl.
Melee, definitely. I think they claimed you couldn't do it in Ultimate, but I think the only way you can do it in Ultimate is if you go off like terrain. Like if you've got like the perfect angle, you can sort of jam someone up against the wall and pummel them.
Yeah, but I mean, that's still my point, though. As far as balancing Smash Ultimate goes, if there's something exploitable, competitive Smash players will find it.
And then the question sort of becomes, well, if you're going to put that much time into labbing, why not lab on a more balanced game?
Nothing really does what Smash does. It's a fun game.
True.
See why people stick with it, even if it is broken.
Maybe that's part of the appeal, is that it is broken.
Yeah, I mean, you get these big moments where you sort of enjoy you get big moments because you pick broken characters, and what's then more entertaining for yourself and for an audience? You get the big dramatic moments of a character decimating somebody else, or you get a big upset. I think like the biggest upset was sort of a couple of years ago was a guy called Hungrybox, I think, played Jigglypuff, which very light character. Only real advantage is that one of its moves is very, very powerful, but you've got to get super close to your opponent and you're left super vulnerable afterwards.
Yeah, Jigglypuff is that kind of character. Yeah, the rest move just super launches. I think like you have to have your character's hitbox like in their hitbox to actually land it. No, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say it's with any fighting game tournament, the big appeal of them is that you see not characters as in playable characters, the players. You like with wrestling, you get your heroes and villains, you get people you root for, and you get the reaction of
personality.
A cult of personality, exactly.
Yeah,
and everyone gets excited about it. I mean, the fighting game communities, I think, coined the term "pop off." The fact that everyone sort of has a huge reaction to what's going on, and Evo Online's going to lose that this year. You're not going to have a big crowd.
I don't know. I kind of disagree. I mean, it's not going to be as visceral. But, I mean, if you look at streams, like, streams can get pretty heated, just spamming the emotes, you can kind of get swept up in that mood. Stream. Sorry, were you saying Tim Sweeney, and now I said Sweem.
Oh, God. I think we've lost Alan again, but we'll soldier on as best we can. Next on the agenda... speaking of strong reactions, the culling has come back. Battle Royale game went free to play for a while. Never really got the appeal as sort of the other things like Fortnite. Had to be shut down in 2019, but it recently came back.
Why did it get shut down?
I just wasn't making the money. There wasn't the interest, there wasn't the money from buying cosmetics and things like that, and the company just said, well, we can't run this anymore, we're shutting it.
So they can do it now?
Well, they brought it back with the most egregious business model that you'd have thought EA would have come up with. Right, so get your head around this. Once a day, you can play a multiplayer game. If you win, you get a token, so you may play it again. If you lose, that's it. Unless you buy more multiplayer tokens to keep playing.
So it's like an arcade.
Kind of. I mean, but rather than sort of being able to buy like an unlimited amount, you have to pay to buy the game. The game's no longer free to play. You actually have to buy the game.
No, oh no, shit! That's fucked up.
Yep, you have to buy the game.
Holy shit.
And then on top of that, you have to buy the ability to play the multiplayer. I mean, I'll just get the article open up on my end, just to get the exact pricing. But suffice to say, people are furious.
They got balls. Wow.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if anybody wasn't upset about this. Like, who thought this was a good idea?
Here we go. Okay, so...
I hope they rip off a lot of suckers.
Unfortunately, there is one born every minute. So the pricing. So it's $6 for the game itself, with one free match every day. You can then buy 3 matches for 99 cents, 10 matches for $3, 20 matches for $5, or an unlimited pass for 7 days for $2, or 30 days for $6. So
what makes their game so compelling that they think they can do this?
Fucking shit. Even watching people play it on YouTube, who I enjoy watching, it's just a battle royale with less players.
I mean, maybe this is kind of like what I was saying with Doom Eternal doing de novo, because nobody's playing it. They're just like, hey, we may as well try this new thing and see if we can actually make it work.
You go on a whaling...
Yeah.
You can go on a whaling trip for like a couple of months and see what you can sort of dredge up, but your reputation's going to stay with you after that.
Yeah, well, you know what they say, no such thing as bad publicity.
I think sort of over the last 6 months we've proven that is absolutely wrong with sort of Blizzard, Sony, Epic.
We are talking about it.
But certainly not in a positive way. I mean, no one's going to sort of listen to this and sort of say, yes, I'm going to invest in that company. Like, everyone's going to sort of steer 10 miles from it.
There's some wild people that are like, I got to see this.
See how bad it is.
They'll be crazy enough to just drop the money just to see what the big deal is. There are people like that.
Yeah, true.
You know,
true.
people who play shitty games ironically, or they'll do it for a stream to just for the attention.
God,
They're out there.
Those two things annoy me the most. Sort of play for irony. Like irony is just like I wanted an excuse to get away with this. No, it's not ironic. You're being a dick.
But I mean, like, so people still buy EA games even after all the bad publicity. I mean, people drop $300 on The Sims and all of its expansion pack.
God. It just blows my mind. I mean, it makes me grateful that sort of Animal Crossing, for now, is just all self-contained. But I mean, with how big that game's getting, I can't see the investors not begging for, like, paid DLC for, like, cosmetics and things like that.
Oh god, I would be so mad if they added like a cash shop to Animal Crossing to get items you wanted.
I'm pretty sure there's going to probably be an Animal Crossing knockoff in the coming years that'll probably implement that.
I mean, I know there's one coming up. I forget what it's called off the top of my head, but I'm not sure if they're going to have a cash shop. But they are making rip-offs of Animal Crossing now, or inspired by, I guess I should say.
God. Here's hoping that sort of one way or another, people learn from what the culling has done. You know, hopefully it won't result in anything stupid. But speaking of stupid questionable decisions, Square Enix recently sort of said they'd be giving away face masks.
I don't know which is stupider, that or getting people to buy Butterfingers for background themes for Final Fantasy VII Remake.
God, well, at least it's better than the fucking cup noodle from 14. No, 13? 15, there we go. But Square Enix have said, hey, you can buy this face mask if you're a Square Enix member and you buy $100 worth of physical merch. I mean, like, people buying, like, the proper medical grade masks that the CDC have recommended and things like that, that can cost over $100 fucking dollars.
Yeah, but, you know, you're getting Nier Automata Black Box Edition.
Yeah, if you are already intending to spend $100, it's a nice extra on top. But it does feel, you know, at a time where people are begging for these face masks to sort of stay safe, offering
it's tasteless.
Exactly
to put it behind like $100 like purchase. Maybe you should just the tasteful thing to do would be to like it's free with every purchase.
Exactly. Or hey, you can buy this for $5. A portion of it goes towards research to help and stuff like that.
Which is strange because they just did a sale, didn't they? Where all proceeds went to research.
Everybody's doing that. You know, everyone's sort of doing a little sale right now, one way or another.
Yeah.
I mean, the weird one I heard was, you know, the Higurashi games.
Higurashi.
Yeah, it's the visual novels.
A visual novel, people go crazy and kill each other sort of thing. The manga gamer had...
Like the Ding Dong Rampa?
It was before Danganronpa.
Yeah. Very, very retro. It just keeps getting remade, yada, yada, yada. Manga Gamer have sort of said they're going to give away the first episode, because there's like 8 episodes there's like 16 episodes where like half of them are the questions and half of them are the answers. It's strange. But they're giving away the game's first chapter for free until there is a cure for the coronavirus.
That's a cheap marketing stunt. I don't care.
Yeah, again, it feels a bit tasteless, especially...
It's tasteless and cheap, but, you know, I mean...
If you know sort of...
I've seen worse from EA.
If you know, like, the plot elements of that game, it's a bit too close to the knuckle.
Well...
I mean, yeah, it doesn't take much to do good PR. You know, you just sort of think, will this... I was just about to say, make sure you don't piss off people. But
no.
Not so easy nowadays.
Hey, well, Capcom released a game about a viral outbreak in the middle of a viral outbreak.
Over here, are you familiar with a British drama called Strike Back?
I've never heard of it.
All sort of British soldiers, guns and all that sort of thing. they released one of their they do like a short series run, and they release them every so often. The most recent one that came out just after the pandemic started was about bioterrorism. I'm honestly, considering how sensitive people are nowadays, I'm surprised it didn't get pulled. I mean, in the end,
I remember how they would have to. People were erasing images of the World Trade Center out of movies right after the 9/11 attacks.
I mean, it almost got the Spider-Man movie shit canned, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, there's a lot of speculation about that, but no one really knows for sure.
One of those stories which is believable enough to sort of, you don't want to question. Why would you question it? Because it's such a minor bit of trivia. But it wouldn't shock me. As you say, like, don't piss off your core audience. But if you upset people who are looking to be upset,
they'll be pissed no matter what.
Yeah. Moving on to some more positive news. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 was announced at the Summer Games Fest, launching September 4th. After the last Tony Hawk game sort of basically nosedived into oblivion because it was terrible and didn't work. Yeah, if you want to talk about bad PR, that game killed the franchise for it's been 5-10 years.
Yeah, what happened was the game actually shipped unfinished, and the day one patch was actually the rest of the game.
Ooh. That yeah, oh shit, I remember that. Like, people playing the tutorial, and then the game just stopped.
Like, they would look on the data mined the disk, and that it was only maybe just like the tutorial area, and it was maybe only 1 gigabyte or something of data.
Jesus.
The update patch was 8 gigabytes.
Fucking hell. I understand there's obviously the need that, okay, we need to make the disc go gold, let's send it out there and put a day one patch out. But at that point, you might as well just delay it and just sort of release it digitally first, physically later.
It might have been a case where they had no choice but to release it, otherwise they might lose the license.
Yeah.
It had to be released by a certain day, otherwise we lose the Tony Hawk license. It would revert back to someone else or something.
Yeah,
you see this happen with movies a lot too. That's what happened with the Fantastic Four movie that happened a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Release an intentionally bad thing just to try and get it out, get it done, get it cheap as possible to hold it.
Not necessarily intentionally, just it has to be out regardless of its quality.
Yeah, I just did a Google search and that looks like that was the case because it said they had to. Activision was about to lose the license.
I was just guessing because that's what it looked like.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Activision was going to lose the license. They had to push the game out before they renegotiated the license.
Well, hopefully the latest one, well, it's a remake of the one that fans have been begging for such a long time, hopefully will obviously turn out a lot better. I mean, have you guys ever played the sort of the Tony Hawk games?
Oh, God, yeah.
I was when I was a kid.
So, what are your thoughts on it?
In my 30s.
I mean, the games have always been fun. Obviously, they're not anything like real skating. It's crazy cartoon physics where you can skate on electric wires. But it's almost like a parkour game, and you just have fun exploring the city, going super fast.
Almost like a collectathon or like a Mario 64 kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
And yet there have been other skating games which have tried to market themselves as, the much more wild, cartoony, zany one. I mean, what's the one where you focus on breaking your bones all the time?
Skate?
That's it, yeah.
That tries to be realistic, and that's why I couldn't get into it.
Really? Huh.
Fun, yeah. That's the whole idea behind it, was that it uses very realistic physics, and every aspect of it is supposed to be like a simulation, and that was what killed it, actually, or at least for me, it did. I just couldn't get into it. It's not fun. Like skating in real life, it's probably really difficult.
A dog can do it.
Yeah, sure, but it's like you're. How can I explain this? It's like there's not much to it at the same time, where it's like you're just riding on a board with wheels, and then you do a trick. That's not terribly exciting. Like if that was just the game. That's why the Tony Hawk, or at least the first few, were so great, was that they weren't realistic, because you could do things that you couldn't do. You know, I guess you could say that you were a Superman.
Oh,
nice. Yeah. Tony Hawk is just a great excuse to listen to ska music without being judged.
I mean, it surprised me. The way they talked about it was though they got the original soundtrack back. I mean, in terms of licensing, you don't often get that.
Nope.
I think they're
paying for ska music these days.
Oh well, there is that to it. Also, oi. I mean, I think you've had it with Grand Theft Auto, you've had it with Saints Row, where the licensed tracks have been taken out through updates just because the license ran out.
So fucked up, because you paid money for that game, and now they're taking content away that you paid for.
Like you can disable updates nowadays, but really, it shouldn't be an automated process. You should be able to sort of have a change log before the update starts and just sort of say, no, I don't want this. Yeah, exactly. Especially, like, you should be able to have updates where you could say this is a minor update, don't worry about it, or a major update where people may object to it, like the de novo on Doom Eternal we sort of mentioned earlier.
That's so fucked up that they will take away features from something you paid for.
And then on the total opposite end of the scale, you've got Terraria and Journey's End, where the update has basically made it a brand new game again.
What if they changed it into a game you didn't want?
Yeah, because you can't get a refund because you've already put like 200 hours into the damn thing, so you're not getting a refund on Steam. I mean,
they can't just they can't just make it like a separate application, so you can still keep the version that you paid for.
Like, unless the outrage was biblical, Steam wouldn't give refunds, you know, to people who didn't like a recent update. You know,
digital future, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, like you were saying earlier about, you know, Epic Games might be doing stuff with streaming. I think that would be the biggest pushback. I mean, you'll need a big company to sort of make people comfortable with the idea that they don't own stuff. I mean, you don't own anything nowadays, you know, with the Steam license, you know. If you do something to upset the moderators, you know, or you I mean, you have to do something pretty fucking bad, but if you upset the moderators, you then lose access to those games.
Scary.
But then again, if you own the physical cart, you then get disc rot, you know.
I've never seen disc rot happen. I mean, I've got games that are like almost as old as me. I've never seen it happen.
I mean, the crazy one I always heard was the fact you can fix disc rot with toothpaste.
I don't know, maybe, but
yeah. I mean, it sounds like
keep talking about it, I've never seen it. I mean, bought games from like all kinds of filthy flea markets, and they still look fine.
It's very strange. Like, I mean, I'm not saying it's a marketing trick, but I mean, they will rot eventually. Like, you know, everything does, sort of, you know.
Probably not while in my lifetime, probably, but I mean,
no, exactly.
Everything atrophies, sure, but probably it won't happen while I'm alive.
And discs that would be, you know, ruined by our age now, those sort of games are on, like, you know, they're either on. Not that we approve of this. They're either on piracy websites because nobody's going to question you for it because the companies aren't around anymore, and they're like, it's like a 20-year-old game.
Yeah, and no one makes money off that.
No, I mean, like, GOG's actually got a beautiful system with the fact that they're old games that probably they're making the lion's share of the profit on, and
actually that reminds me of like something that recently happened with that Mario 64 PC port that someone made, and Nintendo took it down, right?
Really? How unlike them.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If they're not selling Mario 64.
No.
Anywhere. So if I were to go out and like legitimately buy Mario 64, they're not going to get that money because 100% it's going to be a secondhand copy, guaranteed. or it's because like where can I buy it? Just it's not gonna you're not gonna be able to find it anywhere. I mean, they're not selling it on the Switch's eShop, that's for sure.
No,
there is no virtual console for that.
I mean, your hope at this point is that the remake rumours are true, or you get a port, like you say, or you sort of have to go to the legal grey area, which is a case of, well, the company's
Look, as far as I'm concerned, I'm entitled to a pirated version of it because I bought it years ago, back in '96.
You do hear crazy. You hear crazy stories every so often. I don't know the name. I can't remember the name of the developer, but there was a developer at one point who released their own pirated copies of games on piracy websites, and they said, "Hey, we don't want you downloading a game files that have been modified. We don't want you to download a virus. Here is our official pirated copy of the game. All we ask is that."
Was Ed McMillan who did that.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And the idea they said was that all we ask is that if you do enjoy the game, tell your friends and please buy the game later on.
And I think the Hotline Miami developer did that too.
You hear rumours every so often as well. Like you got like conventions where people will go up to the developer and they'll say, "I'm sorry, I pirated your game," and put the money straight in their hand.
Nice.
But not that the publisher would be happy about that, obviously. But I think that's going to be the biggest thing. I think if you do it like GOG, where you could download the game anytime, anywhere, and it's an account that sort of, as long as the company's standing, the account sort of says, yes, that you are entitled to download this game no matter what. I think people will be happy with that. But
that's a fair. I mean, what other choice is there?
So the fact that Nintendo still doesn't have their classic games available on the Switch is absurd to me. I don't understand it. I legitimately don't.
I think I know that
why
they don't. I mean, I don't agree with it, but you get inside like the Nintendo brain, like, and try and think how they think. The idea is that they don't want people to just keep playing like their old games that they made because, like, their games are kind of timeless, and what they want is for you to buy their new shit. That's the idea, right? Otherwise, people will never buy any of their new games. So I think they kind of do what Disney does, where they do that vault kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
I understand.
Sort of like that. Yeah, I mean that's.
And again, I'm going to say something.
Think like them.
I'm going to say something that's going to make me sound really like anti-consumer here or something. I would totally understand if Nintendo does not want to support virtual console sales that they made on the Wii on the Switch. Like, I totally get that.
What do you mean by support?
So a lot of people have said if I bought the virtual console version of Mario 64 or Ocarina of Time, I should be able to play it on all the new ones. And I'm like, I understand if they don't want to do that, especially if the architecture is very different.
Yeah, it may not be possible.
So they might, what they would do is they would have to get their engineers to port the game over to the newer consoles each time. And they have to do that for all the games that anyone has bought in their shop. That could be a massive undertaking if, they're as different as the NVIDIA hardware that's in the Switch and, the old IBM stuff that's in...
To completely circumvent that, they could just do like a compilation release and put that in stores.
They could do that too. I mean, so again, I understand if Nintendo did not want to just support you across the board. I don't like it, but I would understand because I get, they need to pay people.
I mean, it's their own fault at the same time because they didn't have the foresight to create like a real account system.
Well, they had an account system and it got it didn't get hacked officially, but they did have illicit access.
So, I mean, again, I'm not even talking from an account perspective. I'm talking from to get the code running on a Switch and to get code running on a Wii is a totally different process. So to get Mario running, they need to have their engineers go ahead and spend time.
Why put all the money in? Yeah.
Sure it runs.
Why put all the?
It's not a lot of money, but it's still money.
Exactly. You could get
the cost of a new game development.
Yeah, the cost it may not be worth it for them.
And all the while, you've got investors screaming, you know, make something new, make the next big billboard sort of announcement that's going to make me think it's worthwhile investing into you. You know, why do you keep selling? You wouldn't invest in a company that just keeps selling old product unless it's an old product that people are going to buy over and over and over.
Which people do.
Which do, but usually like perishable items or things that are quite timeless, like you say.
Look. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm guilty of possibly buying Super Metroid on every single fucking release it's ever had.
I usually loathe double dipping. Like I got Bayonetta on Wii and not Wii. God, what is it? What was it on PS3? I think I might have had it on like PS3 or something like that. I had Bayonetta.
I think the only version of Bayonetta I don't have is the X-Bone version that came with Vanquish and on the PC. I think those are the only versions of Bayonetta I don't know.
I got the double dip with the Wii U version, but I haven't got it again on Switch just because it's like, well, I've already got it on Wii U. I don't want to buy it a third time, you know. And I love that game, but
I did it.
The love only goes so far, you know.
Nah, my love went that far. I could probably do it a couple more times, but we'll see.
So, I mean, I don't know. The problem that I have with the situation is if you are someone who wants to play Super Mario 64, you know, like you just said, how are you going to play it? And it's really easy to find it in an illicit way. No matter how much Nintendo, not NVIDIA, no matter how much Nintendo sends people to take these things down, you will always be able to find a ROM of Super Mario 64.
I mean, the other day I saw a ROM hack where somebody had modified it to make it act like Odyssey with Super Mario 3D World. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if your technology is so old, people are starting to make fan games based off that engine. Odds are you've either got to make something new or you've just got to start giving the damn thing away.
Yeah, they'll never do that.
Yeah. The crazy one,
I don't.
Go ahead.
I don't have an issue that, you know, if they wanted to charge $5-10 in their eShop for it, and every time you wanted to play that game on a new Nintendo console, you needed to fork over $5-10. I wouldn't care.
Well, $5 is reasonable.
Or even do it as part of like the online package, you know. Sort of, you've got your basic online package for X a month, or if you pay...
I suspect that is probably the end game. I think that's what's inevitably going to happen.
Didn't they do something like that, where they gave you like the NES games if you have their online package or something?
Yeah.
Just recently added SNES, and they're probably going to do N64.
They recently added Paneled Upon, which I think is the first time it's hit the West. Wild Guns, if you guys remember that.
Wild Gun had a Switch version. That's the funny part. And it had extra content.
The craziest one I heard was, this was years ago, I think this was during the Wii U era, they put an unreleased Star Fox game on the Virtual Console. And like,
I don't think it was on the Virtual Console. It was on the mini SNES.
That's right. That's right. And I don't think the developers were sort of dragged out of the original. They sort of said, yeah, we're really glad that people are getting a chance to play it now. But there was like this undercurrent of, we're not getting a cut of this. What the fuck?
It's not that good of a game.
To piss people off, I'm going to say this. I liked... The Wii U version wasn't that bad. I mean, I certainly I haven't replayed it or anything like that. It's definitely a sort of one and done kind of game. But I think once you get used to the motion controls, it's okay. I mean, it was certainly better without them. But I think it wasn't a bad way for Star Fox to come back.
I couldn't do it. I really, really wanted to like it. I couldn't.
Waggle is an acquired taste.
Look, Waggle can be fine in anything, but you got to leave the option for non-Waggle too.
Oh, gotcha.
Out of context, this conversation would sound very weird.
The only one who
that's the intent.
the only one who did Waggle right was Wario.
I don't know
That was pretty good.
Now,
I thought the Metroid Prime version, Waggle editions were all right.
yeah, that's a remake.
Resident Evil 4, very good.
Yeah,
I've never finished Metroid Prime.
just because it didn't appeal to you, or
No, I just got stuck at some point and I just stopped playing it for some reason, and then I think my disc got scratched.
oh, by the way,
Do you guys remember that? Do you guys remember when your games would get scratched?
oh god,
No, I've never had that happen to me. I've never scratched a game in my life.
I touch wood. I think I've been lucky enough not to have that happen to me. But I don't know if you were here earlier when we were. I know you've had like a bit of connection issue, but earlier we were talking about disc rot and sort of the supposed way you could fix it with toothpaste. I mean, is that a thing or what?
I have used it before. I mean, like, the science is there, I suppose, but it depends on how deep it gets.
What the fuck? So it's legit?
So basically what happens is there are several layers of the disk that are not where the data is, and they can get scratched, and then you can't read them because, you know, it's a scratched piece of plastic.
Mm.
What toothpaste does is it sort of clears it so that it can be read properly, technically, I think.
And
Conduit.
Sort of.
Yeah.
So it also, like, there's another thing that happens too, where little bits of, you know, like dirt or sediment or oil or whatever get in, and it actually blurs the image so the laser can't read it. So in cleaning it, you're also sort of filling the gap too.
yeah, because like if you've got a clean cloth but you've got a grain of sand on it, that's just gonna cut clean across it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I did that to my Switch somehow.
What it's also doing is, if I remember right, it's also filling in the jagged edges so that it can read it properly somehow.
How long would a disc?
I don't know. I've done it though, but sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. So.
How long does disc rot? I mean, assuming it's optimal conditions, how long does disc rot take effect? I mean, me and Fingal were sort of saying it was like wouldn't happen within your lifetime, for example.
You mean like the actual like magnetic data on the disc when it actually goes back?
At the point where the disc becomes unreadable, just if you have it sitting in a drawer, yeah.
Yeah, like not because of damage or anything, just from time.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be. God, I haven't thought about this in a long time. Anywhere from like 10 to 50 years, depending on how they do it. I would assume that game companies, it would be on the higher end of that, and you know, DVDs and stuff would be on the higher end of that because they would use better grade materials and, you know, lasers and stuff for mass.
I'm surprised it's got the window's that large.
It depends. I mean, if you're burning CDs on, you know, your DVD burner, they can go back quickly. It depends.
Yeah, those are like real cheap. That I can imagine probably rotting quickly.
But I mean, again, it depends too on like a bunch of. If I remember right, when I was reading about this, it depends too on stuff like the conditions of the way that it's kept and atmosphere and all this sort of other stuff. But I mean, like 50 years, something like that, 30, 50 years. I would assume for like a...
I still have a whole bunch of cartridges that are as old as me.
God, I mean, batteries are running out in cartridges nowadays. I mean, that's sort of the spooky thing.
You know what? I think that might not be entirely true. I still have my Donkey Kong Country file, and it still reads.
Ha!
My 101% file is still there.
Well, it also depends too. Like, there is a massive difference in lifetime, like on the high end or the low end with stuff like batteries. So they can fail within 5 years, or they can fail within, 25.
And also, you've got to consider how older material, because was sort of just built to a better standard in some ways. I mean, like people used to joke about Nintendo stuff being built of Nintendium, because it was just wouldn't break. I mean, there's like I'm probably getting this entirely wrong. A Game Boy Color that was caught in like a fire or a bomb blast, and it helicopter crash, and it still works. They put it in a museum.
Not entirely. He did have to repair it a little because it was really badly damaged. He had to replace a screen, replace a few other parts, but it didn't.
The screen's going to be damaged. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing too is, have you ever seen the thickness of the plastic in the shells of those things?
Yeah, they're tough.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they're tough, honestly. It's just that they're thick. That's a lot of it.
Nintendo knows their audience is going to be primarily children, so that's
they've
why
always overbuilt the spec, yeah.
Yeah. And so they test the shit out of these things.
I remember the Sega Genesis having a thin layer of plastic around it, and I remember the Super Nintendo and the N64 being heavy for no reason.
I remember how quickly my Genesis broke down, and my SNES just kept soldering on. It still works to this day. I've never had a problem with it.
The only hardware issues, sort of, I think any of us have come with generations where closer to the 360, the Xbox 360 and stuff like that, with the red ring of death. So like
there's a reason for that. There's a
Yeah.
reason for the 360. The 360 was
Rushed.
way too much hardware in a box. Well, no, that thing was too much hardware for a console.
Yeah, they didn't get proper cooling.
I mean, like, you legitimately, if you wanted to buy the graphics card that the Xbox was based off of, it was like, God, $400 or $500.
fucking hell.
It was a pretty serious graphics card, and that's just the graphics card. So it heated up, like it got up there. They were loud too. That's another thing that people forget is they said, well, the cooling was there. I'm like, they had some fans in there. They would have had to change the footprint of that entirely with larger fans to make the whole profile bigger to get larger fans.
You know what was a really loud console? The Dreamcast.
God, yeah.
I never had one.
Oh, it's so loud.
I played with friends, but I remember the damn thing sort of. I took off like a jet engine.
Yeah.
Was it the fans in it, or was it the?
It was like the combination of like the fans and the moving parts. It was just like it sounded like a robot, like.
Which almost added to the hype. You knew it was working. If as silly as that sounds.
And
y'all remember
if you're playing a RPG like Skies of Arcadia, if you heard the fan kick in and you heard like a loud buzz coming from like the internal components, you knew you were going to get into a fight.
Yeah, or in the GameCube version where they just give you all fights all the time.
Yeah.
Brandon, what are you going to say?
No, just y'all remember like the first PlayStation and like the sound of the disc that are scraping on the inside a little bit.
I do. Yeah, the first generation PS1 got really hot too. I remember like you can almost cook an egg on that thing.
Really funny story. The PlayStation that I had when I was a kid came from my aunt, who bought it at a store, and it was like a store demo version. It worked fine, like the whole time, but it just, you had to do the thing where you like turned it on its side and did all
I
that
remember
stuff.
that. I remember people had to turn it upside down in some cases.
God, you hear horror stories like that about the fact that you could sort of just put something on top of the disc, like just a disc tray to sort of make it work properly. I remember it might have been the 360. There was like back when they used to sort of talk about video games on TV, there was a guy sort of doing a piece to camera, sort of saying, "Hey, I'm here with this new console," and the fact that the console could run like flat on its side, and the guy picked it up while it was running, and you just heard the disc go.
Oops.
And like the rep standing there saying, "Don't do that! Please don't do that!"
That's funny. That's really funny. I had a question though, because you guys mentioned Skies of Arcadia. Which version would you guys recommend somebody play it who's never?
I've played both.
I've only been exposed to the GameCube one. I mean, if we're talking about games that want to remake, I'm really want a remake of that.
Did you believe me if I told you the Dreamcast version had more encounters?
I thought it was the other way around. I thought the GameCube version had the encounter rate turned up to 12.
I can't. I'm having trouble remembering which was the case, but I do remember the encounter rate was pretty absurd in that game.
Yeah, I mean, I think due to, I mean, it's only the GameCube, which was only like only 10 years ago, God, or maybe 15. I think again, it's another one of those games where if you want to get your hands on it, you've got to get it however you can. It's a game about pirates, funnily enough. Hint, hint.
What?
Oh dear.
I have no idea what you're alluding to.
No, of course not.
No,
of course not.
We're not alluding to anything. We're
God, but-
just having a nice.
Look,
we're having a laugh.
get money no matter how you
Having
get.
a laugh, mate. Is that how you
Having a laugh, having a giggle,
see?
having a Rory.
Busting the nut.
What does a git mean? That's a
Git.
derogatory-
Oh, git. Like someone misbehaving, sort of. You know, somebody who doesn't.
punk.
Yeah, a punk, basically. A git. Horrible little git.
Okay.
I don't know the etymology behind it, but I don't think anyone from England does either.
Is it something you call, like, a kid when he's misbehaving?
Usually aimed at kids.
What prisoner inmates call like the bitch.
It's new to me, but usually you'd aim it at little kids, but you'd sort of also say it to people your own age, like, "Oh, you're such a git," you know.
Okay.
So Fingal, have you been in many British prisons?
Oh God.
Well, Fingal has some secret history. That's why he's not using his full name here.
I've been to a Turkish prison.
What?
What? Huh? What?
And with that, I think that is all the time we have before the Turkish authorities snatch Fingal away from his computer screen. This has been Nichecast. As always, check us out on the website, support us on Patreon. You keep us alive, we'll keep doing what you love. And we have been Fingal Belmont.
Hello. I mean, goodbye.
Smooth. Alan Watts.
Serbia is best country in Balkans. Turkey gross.
Brandon Little.
Later.
And Ryan Pearson. Take care, guys. See you next time.